What if I told you the future war isn't being built by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, or even the Pentagon? It's being built by a startup that didn't even exist a decade ago. A company so ambitious, it's trying to rewrite the rules of modern warfare. But here's the question. How did a small startup become one of America's most valuable defense companies? Its name, Anduril Industries. Today, it's worth tens of billions of dollars. Its AI-powered drones patrol borders. Its autonomous systems help militaries make decisions in seconds. And governments around the world are paying attention. But none of this was supposed to happen, because the man behind Anduril wasn't a military general. He wasn't a defense contractor. He wasn't even welcome in Silicon Valley anymore. So, who was he? And why did almost everyone underestimate him? His name was Palmer Luckey. Most people knew him for one thing: virtual reality. Years earlier, he built Oculus in a small garage. Then, Facebook bought it for billions of dollars. It looked like the perfect success story. Young billionaire, global fame, unlimited opportunities. From the outside, his future looked unstoppable. But behind closed doors, everything was about to fall apart. In 2017, Palmer Luckey suddenly disappeared from Facebook. There was no celebration, no emotional farewell, no clear explanation. One day, he was one of the company's brightest stars. The next, he was gone. Silicon Valley couldn't stop asking the same question. Why would Facebook let go of one of its greatest innovators? Was he fired? Did he quit? Or was something much bigger happening behind the scenes? For most people, that would have been the end. After making billions, they would have retired, bought islands, collected luxury cars, lived comfortably for the rest of their lives. But Palmer wasn't interested in retirement. He had become obsessed with a completely different problem, a problem almost nobody in Silicon Valley wanted to touch: national security. And that decision would change his life forever. At the time, America's defense industry looked almost frozen. The same giant companies had dominated military contracts for decades: Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Boeing. Their weapons were powerful, but developing new technology often took years, sometimes more than a decade. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence was evolving every month. Drones were becoming smarter. Software was moving faster than hardware. Palmer looked at the industry and saw something everyone else had missed. What if wars in the future wouldn't be won by the biggest weapons, but by the smartest software? It sounded crazy, but was he actually right? In 2017, he founded Anduril Industries. Even the name carried a message. Anduril was a legendary sword from the Lord of the Rings, a weapon reborn, stronger than before. Palmer believed America's defense industry needed the same thing. Not another giant contractor, a complete reset. But there was one huge problem. Nobody believed a startup could compete against companies that had been building weapons for generations. So, how do you convince the U.S. military to trust a company that had never built anything for them? Investors were skeptical. Defense experts laughed. Many people called it impossible. Some said Silicon Valley entrepreneurs should stay away from the military. Others believed Anduril would disappear within a few years. After all, building software is one thing. Building technology for national defense is something completely different. Palmer heard every criticism, but instead of arguing, he started building. And what he built next would shock the entire defense industry. Instead of creating another fighter jet or another tank, Anduril focused on artificial intelligence, autonomous drones, smart surveillance towers, software that could detect threats without waiting for a human command. It wasn't trying to replace soldiers. It was trying to give them superhuman awareness. For the first time, a defense startup was thinking like a technology company. Fast, flexible, software first. But one question remained. Would the military ever trust artificial intelligence with something this important? Winning government contracts isn't like selling software. A startup can't simply build a product, launch a website, and expect customers to appear. In defense, trust is everything. One mistake can cost lives. One failure can cost billions. So, why would the U.S. military trust a company that had only existed for a few months? That was a challenge Anduril had to solve. Instead of promising the future, they built it. While many defense companies spent years designing presentations, Anduril built working prototypes. Real drones, real surveillance systems, real AI software. They wanted military leaders to see technology in action, not just hear promises. It was a completely different mindset, and people started noticing. But one product changed everything. It was called Lattice. At first glance, it looked like just another military software platform, but it wasn't. Lattice could connect drones, cameras, radars, sensors, and autonomous vehicles into one intelligent network. Instead of soldiers watching dozens of separate screens, artificial intelligence analyzed everything at once. It could detect unusual movement, track potential threats, and alert operators within seconds. It wasn't replacing humans. It was helping them make faster decisions. But could software really outperform decades of military experience? Then came the border. The U.S. government needed better surveillance. Thousands of miles, too many blind spots, too few people. Instead of sending more patrols, Anduril proposed something different. Autonomous surveillance towers, powered by artificial intelligence. These towers never got tired, never looked away, never stopped scanning. Day or night, they watched everything. If something unusual happened, the system immediately alerted nearby officers. Suddenly, a small startup was solving problems that had existed for years, and government agencies began paying attention. Contracts started arriving, small at first, then larger. Every successful deployment created more confidence. Every successful mission opened another door. Anduril wasn't just winning customers. It was changing how defense contracts were awarded. For decades, the biggest companies usually won. Now, a startup was proving speed could beat size. That terrified the old defense giants. Because if Anduril could do this once, what would stop them from doing it again? Palmer Luckey had one philosophy: move fast, improve constantly. Don't wait 5 years to release better technology. Release it now. Learn from real-world feedback, then make it better. It sounded more like Silicon Valley than the defense industry, but that speed became their biggest advantage. While competitors were still planning, Anduril was already deploying, and every deployment made the company stronger. Investors quickly noticed. Money poured into the company. Some of Silicon Valley's biggest venture capital firms wanted in. Each funding round pushed Anduril's valuation higher. Billions, then tens of billions. People who once laughed at the company were now asking how they could invest. The startup that wasn't supposed to survive was becoming one of America's fastest-growing private companies. But rapid growth created a new question. Could Anduril grow fast without losing control? Then something even bigger happened. The world changed. Conflict around the globe showed one clear lesson. Modern warfare was changing. Small autonomous drones, artificial intelligence, and real-time software were becoming just as important as tanks and fighter jets. Suddenly, everything Palmer had predicted years earlier didn't seem crazy anymore. It seemed inevitable, and Anduril was already prepared. But by now, Anduril was no longer just another startup. It had become one of the most talked-about companies in Silicon Valley, not because it built social media apps or smartphones, but because it was building the future of defense. And the world was finally paying attention. But with attention came enormous pressure. Could Anduril actually deliver on its bold promises? Or would it become just another overhyped startup? The answer came faster than anyone expected. Around the world, governments began rethinking how wars would be fought. The battlefield was changing. Drones were replacing expensive aircraft for many missions. Artificial intelligence was helping commanders make decisions in seconds instead of minutes. Autonomous systems were becoming more important every year. The future Palmer Luckey had imagined was no longer science fiction. It was becoming reality. And Anduril had arrived at exactly the right moment. Was it luck? or years of preparation. Instead of chasing every opportunity, Anduril stayed focused. The company continued building autonomous drones, underwater vehicles, advanced surveillance systems, and AI-powered software. Each new product had one goal: protect soldiers, reduce human risk, and make military operations faster and smarter. It wasn't trying to replace people. It was trying to give them better tools. That simple philosophy became Anduril's biggest advantage. Then came the numbers. Investors kept pouring in billions of dollars. The company's valuation climbed at an incredible pace, from an ambitious startup to one of America's most valuable private defense companies. In less than a decade, Anduril had achieved what many experts believed was impossible. The same people who once dismissed Palmer Luckey were now studying his strategy. The question had changed. No longer, can Anduril survive? Now it was, how big can it become? But Palmer wasn't chasing headlines. He wasn't trying to build the biggest company. He wanted to build the fastest one. While traditional defense contractors often spent years developing a single system, Anduril constantly improved its technology. New software updates, smarter AI, better autonomous systems, faster deployment. The company moved more like a technology startup than a defense contractor, and that speed changed the rules of the industry. Today, Anduril works on technologies that once existed only in science fiction: AI-powered surveillance, autonomous drones, smart defense systems, underwater robotic vehicles, advanced battlefield software. Every year, its technology becomes more capable, and every year, more governments begin paying attention. The company that started with one bold idea is now helping shape the future of modern defense. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the story has nothing to do with technology. It's about belief. Palmer Luckey was told he didn't belong. People questioned his experience, his vision, even his decision to enter the defense industry. But instead of arguing, he kept building. History has shown something remarkable. Almost every industry-changing company looks impossible in the beginning until suddenly it isn't. Anduril's story isn't just about drones, artificial intelligence, or billion-dollar contracts. It's about seeing a future before everyone else does. While others were improving yesterday's technology, Palmer Luckey was designing tomorrow's. That's what separates companies that follow trends from companies that create them. So the next time you hear the name Anduril, remember, it wasn't built by the oldest company or the biggest company. It was built by someone willing to challenge an entire industry. And sometimes, that's exactly how history is made. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Rise from Zero for more untold stories about billion-dollar companies, groundbreaking technology, and the visionaries changing the world, one impossible idea at a time.